Now, a national emergency as socialism takes over the Democratic Party. Is this a trend or a dangerous transfer of power? Let's now talk about it with developmental psychologist and honorary research fellow at the University of Buckingham, Dr. John D. Haltigan, and Republican State Representative from Minnesota, Kristen Robbins. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining. And Dr. Haltigan, I want to start with you here. On the socialist surge, you say the Democratic Party is defined by hyper-feminized cluster B psychopathology. It's a mouthful right there. You call it a national political psychiatric crisis. So break this down. What exactly do you mean by this?
So, yeah, thanks for having me. And basically what I mean by that is if you look at most of these candidates who are coming out, Valdez, Chevrolet, AOC, even prior to those, they're all females, most of them. And even the males tend to be very feminine in nature. And so you have what you end up with is just a series of hyper emotional female candidates that hate the country. They're petulant, they're angry, they claim victimization everywhere, and that is a trend that we've seen through most of these candidates. Any way they can attribute victim status to themselves or to their constituencies is what they do, and it's basically just a lashing out at the spirit of the American ethos and basically what we've accomplished, and you see this constantly in everything that they do. And you see it in their rhetoric, you see it in their speech, you see it in the way that they gin up their base. And so when I say that, I mean, it's just a essence of anger and emotion that is disseminated at the American people and at the electorate in general.
Yeah, Senator, to that point, you look at the state of Colorado, Milot Quiros, she is a Democratic nominee for governor in that state, identifies as a socialist herself. She has been on the record saying that America deserved 9/11. Take a listen.
Do you believe that the 9/11 terrorist attacks on America were the inevitable consequence of American foreign policy?
Inevitable in the sense that we destabilized a lot of the Middle East, that forced people to believe that another act of violence was the only response.
So, I mean, it's a little bit staggering to think that somehow what happened on that horrific day when those souls lost their lives in those towers, a nation ripped apart, but then coming back together, somehow that was just chickens coming home to roost?
Oh, it is so shameful. I was shocked to hear that statement. And no American who was alive on 9/11 would ever countenance that. I will never forget where I was. I will never forget the impact it had. And Americans were victims of that horrific attack. And we didn't blink. We fought back right away because we cannot tolerate such horrific attacks on our soil, and we showed the world that America will not be a victim. And I think to your previous guest's point, like, people have to understand history, and that is an absolute rewriting of history, and Americans should not put up with it. We are nearing the 25th anniversary of that horrific attack, and that is shameful for someone who's running for office to have said that.
That's a really good point. I think some of the younger generation, they don't understand history because some of them weren't even alive when some of these really important historic events took place. And that's why their words are really resonating with the younger generation. So, Doctor, on the subject of Quiros, she didn't stop there because she's resonating with this younger audience. So she's trying to lean in. Here she is with notorious internet bigot Hassan Piker on how Democratic Socialists intend to fix our broken immigration system.
Abolishing ICE is just one step, right? Democrats have been in power multiple times over the last few decades and did nothing to address the immigration reform that we actually need.
ICE expenditures, increased spending.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think there has to be an immediate pathway for every single undocumented immigrant that's here in this country.
Okay, there she said it, an immediate pathway to citizenship for every undocumented illegal in this country. Doctor, does this sound reasonable to you?
No, in fact, all of them want to abolish ICE. They want to abolish prisons. They want to abolish incarceration. They want to basically abolish the American system. And that's part of the problem, is that you have what's happened, and what surprised me is this is something that's been brewing in the academy for some time. They teach this to students who then go out, and education students teach it to kids. And so they have now a ready-made sort of, base they can gin up with this stuff about abolition, about the oppression that they're going to alleviate. And this is the way they do it. And the part of the problem is that the people they're speaking to that have come out of the education system and or the academy, the social sciences, they're already primed to kind of accept this notion that we can just abolish ICE, abolish immigration, have open borders, and do whatever we want without any social constraints, and we're going to fix all our problems. And then you have a figurehead like Piker, who is able to sort of commandeer all this rhetoric and serve as the figurehead, and it just goes crazy. And so they think they can just simply change everything about the American system by abolishing things.
Well, Senator, to that specific point, again, this rapid rewriting of history. Mao killed 40 to 60 people. Lenin killed over 20 million people, and Stalin combined. The policies that they are extolling have quite literally never worked in the history of the world, and the only thing they have worked to do is bring death to the people that embraced them. So I think, last question to you here, how do we get more Americans to realize that this slow creeping socialism has very serious consequences in the end?
Well, I think one of the things is that the Republican Party has to get on the ground and realize that this is something that's been brewing in the academy for a long time. So this is not a surprise to me to see the rise of democratic socialism. It's not a surprise to see these people winning in their primaries. They have to get on the ground. They have to sort of go to the schools, teach about what America is, and recognize that if we don't really address this, it's going to be a big problem, not just heading into the midterms, but in 2028, if we don't end up addressing this, confronting it, and really calling it for what it is, which is basically delusion.
Yeah, and Senator, we have sound from Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker on the future of democratic socialism as a winning strategy. So let's take a listen to that.
I think what's good is that there are Democrats who are standing up and fighting. I think those are the people who are winning. I'm just suggesting that that is the recipe for winning in 2026 and I think beyond.
Do you believe that this is truly the future of the Democratic Party, Senator?
It's definitely what we see in Minnesota. The DSA is running the Democrat Party here in Minnesota, and we have to push back because what they are fighting for, what they say openly, is they want government to take over more control of our lives. They call it expanding democracy into other aspects of life. They're talking about taking over healthcare, education, childcare, housing, and that just brings misery. There is no free lunch. I'm an economist. We all know it. And what we need is to, they tie it to affordability, and Americans are struggling with affordability. But the answer isn't for government to regulate more and tax more. The answer is to deregulate and cut taxes so people can keep more of their own money and make decisions for their families about how best to spend it. And we as Republicans have to show families that we are fighting for them just as hard, and we are fighting for freedom, and we are fighting for them to make more of their own decisions, not have government control more of their lives.
Absolutely. Well, President Trump has already said it hasn't worked anywhere else, and it certainly will also not work here. Thank you so much to both of you, Dr. John D. Haltigan and Kristen Robbins.
Thank you.